Good morning, Redbourn. I'm Symon Vegro, and I welcome you all to another Active in Redbourn weekly call, which is in fact the last but one. More of that later. As always, thank you to all the generous people, including the Parish Council, who have donated to keep the calls free of charge for our listeners over the last few months. As ever, I believe our clever technical team behind the scenes is making this available live on the Redbourners Facebook page, and afterwards it's going to be on there and on our website. And as in previous weeks, everybody bar today's speakers is on mute, so you can make as much noise as you want to. And given this is the penultimate call, we're going to allow Will's dog to bark as much as the dog likes if there's a delivery or something like that. We have wonderful guests on today, as we always do. First up, we have Sally Bartlett from the Redbourn Care Group, and then Will with his thought for the week, including, I hope, the homework I set him a few weeks ago. We'll see how he performs on that one. And then to finish, we have Rachel Mackie, very active in Redbourn member, who plays a pivotal role in pulling these calls together, actually, and who hosted the recent call with Dim Afalami, our local MP, who did a fantastic reading of Dulce et Decorum Est during our special Remembrance Day call, but who will today be talking about running. There were so many things she could talk to us about, but today she's going to talk to us about running. So good morning to you all. And first of all, I'm going to talk to you, Sally, if that's okay. So how are you today?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, and thank you very much for inviting me back again. That's very generous of you. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I mean, talk about generosity, the wonderful work you do, Sally. We couldn't not really, could we?
Well, I think these community calls have been excellent, actually. They've been a fantastic resource, so I'm thrilled to be asked again. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So before we start, are you tucked away in the village hall, or are you somewhere else?
No, I'm not in the village hall. I'm at home. Yes, hopefully I've shut the windows, turned everything off, so you won't get too many bangs or bleeps or any noise, so we shall see what happens.
Okay, lovely. So I was just checking the, as I said, because we are coming towards the end of these calls, I was just checking all the previous dates and things, and can you believe it? The last time you were on, in fact the only other time you were on, was on the 3rd of June. It just seems remarkable how long ago that was, and it seems that so much has happened. So I suppose I'd like to start with asking you to tell us what the Care Group's been up to since the 3rd of June, which is an awful lot, and how your activities have evolved during the pandemic. Nice, easy one to start with.
Well, thank you. Well, what have we been up to? Goodness. The Care Group has developed new services. We hope that they have been in response to the community, but, you know, we are still adapting and evolving. I feel very sad, as many of us do, that the social transport, you know, and the events, they're still on hold. But perhaps I could read something to you that one resident wrote a couple of weeks ago, which in many ways sums up what we have been doing. This is a quotation from Miriam, and she says, "I've been so grateful to all the wonderful volunteers who have given up their time to help me during these difficult times. I've received food parcels, regular newsletters, and my shopping done for me. My prescriptions have been delivered, as well as transport arranged for my doctors and hospital appointments. Redbourn Care Group have been like guardian angels with their help and encouragement to keep me safe and well. I'm so fortunate to live in such a special, caring village. Thank you." And I promise you, I didn't force her hand. Wrote it entirely voluntarily, but I think it's a great tribute to the community and everyone who has pulled together over this period.
Yes, I mean, when you hear feedback like that, it's just lovely, isn't it? I suppose it makes it all feel that we are making a difference, which is lovely. So Sally, from a personal point of view, you obviously have a pivotal role in Redbourn Care Group, and it's kind of like a leadership kind of a role. How does it feel to have that responsibility, and how do you cope with all the things you have to cope with?
It's absolutely terrifying, actually. I mean, I remember at the AGM last year, I must have looked petrified, because Will turned to me and he said, "Are you all right?" And I said, "Well, no, not really." I mean, it's such a daunting task to sort of follow on from Barry Welch, who was chair for, you know, well over 10 years, and he's very, very well respected. Before him, of course, was Cyril Lambert and Podge Fox. They're all very big shoes to fill. However, I soon realised that actually it's all about the team, and the Care Group has a very skilled and experienced team of trustees who work tirelessly behind the scenes. there's 8 altogether. We've got Peter Roby, we've got Dennis Poole, Peter Gunson, Jan Fenton, Steve Lillywhite, Barry and Will, of course. And with Claire Louise, who works hard in the office, they're absolutely an amazing, dedicated group of people. And they certainly keep me on track, thank goodness.
What's been the biggest challenge, do you think, Sally, you've faced then since June and since all the lockdown sort of, carried forward? What's been most difficult for you to deal with?
There's no doubt that the year has been challenging, but it's been the same for everyone. I think most challenging have been requests where you have to dig very deep to see what you can do to help. Because when you offer a helpline, obviously you have to respond. And some calls have been interesting. One Saturday afternoon we had a resident, she rang to say that one of her roof tiles was sliding off the roof. What could we do? Well, I had no intention of going up a ladder. I absolutely hate heights at the best of times, so that was quite a conundrum. Another resident's son rang from the other side of the world, and he said he hadn't been able to speak to his mother for 10 days because she wasn't answering the phone, and that was of some serious concern. On a lighter note, someone wanted a balloon pump. Fortunately, I had one in the back of the cupboard, so that helped. I think the challenges are not knowing what form the request might take when that phone rings. And I'm wondering if our biggest challenge is yet to come, because the surgery have asked us to help with patient transport as part of the COVID vaccination project.
Oh, have they? Okay.
As you've heard in the media, the release is imminent, but of course we don't have details of the location. I'm not sure that it's going to be in Redbourn. We don't know yet. We don't know the delivery date. All I can say is that, volunteers in Redbourn, they're going to rise to the challenge, and we are getting ready.
Oh, I'm sure they will. It's a pity you don't do roof tiles, by the way, but I'll speak to you separately about that. What's been your most enjoyable and or fulfilling either thing you've done or sequence of things you've done during lockdown?
Well, there have been a number of positives, actually, lots of positives. I think, in general, making connections with people and groups, with obviously the coronavirus volunteers, with St Mary's, we've got the health centre, the pharmacy, Neighbourhood Watch as well, and of course yourselves active in Redbourn. There are others, and we all pooled our resources and energy, so we were able to start helping people, from day one of the first lockdown. For me personally, I've been very moved by the children and the young people who during the summer they made almost 300 creative Keep Smiling cards. They all had a personal message and they were given out to people on their own or self-isolating. And one resident, he rang up to say that he would treasure the card forever in his special memories box. Last week I received again, an uplifting request from the Brownies, the Rainbows and the Guiding Units. They've asked if they can make Christmas cards, which we can distribute to residents. And the Rainbows, they're decorating a Christmas tree for the Flamstead Christmas Tree Festival. And they're making stars. And on each star, it's going to have the name of a Redbourn volunteer on it. I think that's such a lovely idea. After the 5th of December, the tree will be in the village hall for everyone to see.
If you keep on going, I'm gonna well up. So you have to stop there. It's just so good. All the wonderful things that are going on. Okay, I'll try and hold it together. Does the care group have any specific initiatives coming up now? Approaching Christmas, it's a wonderful time, but it can be a terrible time for some people. What's this sort of care group gearing up to do?
Well, we're really looking forward to the Laughter-thon on December the 19th. I think that's going to be a great event. So we're looking forward to that, and I know you're organising that for everybody on the 19th. On another note, we've recruited quite a number of new volunteers. And these volunteers love to talk. We're deliberately looking for people who enjoy chatting to other people about all sorts of things. Some who've got wide experiences and who've led interesting lives. And the reason for that is because we've launched a new service which we're calling Friendly Calls. So we match a volunteer with a resident who wants some conversation from time to time. Now, anyone can request a friendly call. Since the second lockdown, we've extended this to what we're calling friendly walks. And this is a one-to-one opportunity for residents to spend about half an hour or so out and about, probably on the common with a volunteer. So again, this volunteer will be both chatty and light walking. However, I will say that the walk is at the pace of the resident. So it could be slow, or it could actually be with a resident who's in an electric scooter, so it might even be a jog. The main criteria is obviously to keep distance, to keep one-to-one, all in accordance with government guidelines. But we think these will go on into December, January and beyond. It's an initiative in partnership with AIR. So we're looking to develop that.
Yeah, they're really good. And in fact, at the end of the call, Sally, I'll just remind people how to find out about those and how to get involved in them if they want to. So they're really good initiatives.
Lovely, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned volunteers there. As we near the end of our little chat, just wanted to know, is there anything else you're looking for from the village? I mean, you talked about new volunteers. Do you need more volunteers? Do you need more funding? Is there any do you have any sort of requests for our lovely, generous village?
Well, we're always looking for volunteers. I mean, they're absolutely crucial and vital to the work of the charity. I would say that next year in particular, we're going to have a recruitment drive to attract new trustees, because some of those people I mentioned earlier, they have served for many years and they absolutely deserve a rest, and quite rightly we ought to let them step down. But it will mean that we need, new people to join us, because it's absolutely crucial to have a good team working behind the scenes, because that's what makes it all happen.
Absolutely. Okay, Sally, final question for you then, and I guess it's opening up the call to you in terms of any final message you might have for our listeners. Is there any last thing you want to say to them today?
Well, yes, thank you. I would. My message really is, please call us. We would love to hear from you, not just if you want something tangible like your shopping or transport to an appointment, but actually if you want to have a conversation. If you haven't spoken to anyone for a while or you feel like a chat, just pick up the phone and call. If we're on the other line, we'll call you back. Our volunteers, they love to talk. So that's my message really. Please call us, because we would love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. Well, listen, Sally, you do a wonderful role, you and the team. I know the whole village really appreciate it. I mean, appreciate doesn't really do it justice, but, it's fantastic what you do. So just keep going, keep doing the wonderful work you do, and remember that we all massively thank you and appreciate what you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.
Okay, and now the moment that Will's been dreading, because a couple of weeks or so ago I gave him some homework. Good morning to you, Will.
Good morning, Simon. Hi.
How are you today? I hope you're not feeling too nervous.
Trembling.
Okay. Well, without further ado, thank you so much, as always, for agreeing to give us a thought for the week, the penultimate thought for the week on these calls. I'll now hand the call over to you to reveal your answers and to tell us whatever you want to tell us. Thanks, Will.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Simon, who is our warm and most genial host for these community calls, left me with a challenge for this thought for the week. He said I should talk about something that relates to the date, the 22nd of November, and I've been wondering what on earth he had in mind. No doubt relating to something significant that happened on that date, the 22nd of November, back in history. Perhaps he was thinking of the release on the 22nd of November 1995 of the film Toy Story, a groundbreaking film, the first to use solely computer-generated animation, and in a rare group of films with 100% approval rating on the film review website Rotten Tomatoes. Woody, Buzz Lightyear and friends left their mark for sure and are still enjoyed today. Or perhaps we should be turning our thoughts back not quite so far to 2003. On this day, England played Australia in the final of the Rugby World Cup, and with the scores level deep in extra time, Johnny Wilkinson, the England fly half, dramatically snatched victory for England with an amazing drop goal with 26 seconds left on the clock. It remains the only time that a Northern Hemisphere team has won the Webb Ellis Cup. Such was the magnitude of that achievement that when the team flew back into London, enormous crowds gathered to welcome them home and to celebrate. It's estimated that 750,000 people turned out to greet the heroes, making it, to this day, still the largest gathering for any sports event ever in the UK. But other things happened on the 22nd of November in history. Perhaps it was the inaugural flight of Concorde to New York in 1977. I have to say I've got a great soft spot for Concorde, one of those special moments where England and France left aside their traditional rivalry and disdain and collaborated on the most amazing feat of engineering that saw transatlantic flights possible in under 3 hours. One of the two prototypes, well, is that a contradiction in terms? Can you have more than one prototype? Well, one of those, anyway, is in the Fleet Air Arm Museum in Yeovilton, very near to where I grew up. I remember going as a young lad and being in total awe at the amazing sleek lines. Little did I know that there would be a later connection. When I was first ordained, I served as the assistant curate in Staines, Middlesex. One of the church wardens was none other than Mike Bannister, the chief pilot of Concorde. So on the odd occasion that Mike wasn't in church on a Sunday morning, he still made his presence felt with an almighty boom as he hit Mach 1 during the first Bible reading overhead on his way across the Atlantic. But I digress. Maybe on the 22nd of November we think of the independence in 1943 of the Lebanon from French rule, less likely. Or perhaps slightly more likely, the assassination of JFK in Dallas, Texas in 1963. But knowing Symon and his love of literature, perhaps the 22nd of November for him is first and foremost the birth in 1819 of Mary Ann Evans, who wrote under the name George Eliot, the wonderful English novelist, poet, journalist and translator, and one of the leading writers of the Victorian era. The novel Middlemarch is widely regarded, and I think rightly, as one of the high points of all English fiction. Well, it could be that. Who knows? But it is always hard to get into the thoughts of another person, so I may well have missed the mark and failed my homework challenge. So resigned to that, I'll instead turn my thoughts not to history, but to the 22nd of November 2020 instead. Why is that so special? What's so special about that? Well, apart from only being a few days ago, and so I can still remember it, it was a Sunday, and it was a Sunday that goes by several names. It was the Sunday known as the Feast of Christ the King, and reflects on the fact that Jesus, now ascended to the heavens, sits in glory on the right hand of the Father as Lord and King. It gives us a reminder of his majesty and power before we turn our thoughts to how it all began in such different, lowly circumstances in an animal shed in a backwater town, Bethlehem. So that marks the end of the, so that's Christ the King, but last Sunday was also known as the last Sunday before Advent. It marks the end of the church year, and as the cycle of the church year begins again. And next Sunday we don't start our new church year as the rest of the world on the 1st of January, but the church's calendar begins on Advent Sunday, next Sunday. And so the 22nd of November, last Sunday, was drawing the past year to the end before the cycle starts again. As we look back over the past year, there will be much that has been very hard, much that we want to leave behind and move on from. This time last year, nobody had even heard of coronavirus, and we had no idea what was coming our way and the effect that it would have on our whole world. But despite all that, has been really challenging, despite all that has left and felt scary and uncertain, there will still be much to look back on in amongst this and be grateful for. I think of these community calls, which have been such a brilliant experience to share in. I think of the care group and the coronavirus volunteers that we've just hearing more about, and the amazing kindness shown in our village with shopping and prescriptions, help and phone calls. I think of the wonderful way that people have looked out for their neighbours and people have stopped to chat and reassure whilst out walking. These things and so many others are reasons to look back and be grateful. So perhaps last Sunday was a chance to do that, to reflect, to take stock and to give thanks. But the other name for the 22nd of November 2020, last Sunday, is Stir Up Sunday. It gets its name from the collect, the special prayer for that day, and that goes like this. Stir up, we beseech thee, O Lord, the wills of thy faithful people, that they, plenteously bringing forth the fruit of good works, may of thee be plenteously rewarded through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And because of the opening words, stir up, the Sunday came to be known as Stir Up Sunday. But it has also come to be a bit of a tradition that this is the day that people stir up the ingredients in their mixing bowl and make their Christmas pudding. Myself, I prefer a richer, darker Christmas pudding, so I would be making the pud for 12 months' time and giving it a chance to mature and perhaps feeding it some brandy at regular intervals. As you stir the ingredients, everybody in the household takes a turn and makes a wish. I wonder what you wish for the coming year. I have a feeling that many of our wishes will be the same or very similar this year. But the prayer asks us to stir up the fruits of good works. In other words, to be generous in our actions and our thoughts towards others. As we turn our attention to Advent and Christmas and plans that we may have, some things will be possible. Some might look rather different this year. But wouldn't it be wonderful if we gave somebody the fruit of our good works, some love, care, friendship and support? That could be the best gift we give anyone this year.
Will, thank you very much. I'm going to delay the moment of truth just for a moment or two to say that I didn't know that about George Eliot, actually, so that wasn't one of them. But
okay.
Very good. And I've also, I suppose I ought to publicly confess, I've never read Middlemarch. It's been on my list of books to read for about 20 years, and it's sort of creeping towards the top. So in fact, I'm looking at it now, and I commit to reading it as soon as I finish the current one.
Very good. It is just a brilliant portrait of rural life in this country, as well as fantastic character portrayals as well. I think you'll enjoy it.
Thanks, Will. I'll do that. So now I'm going to reveal your score to you. There were three particular... First of all, thank you so much for doing the homework.
No.
There were three particular things that I had in mind, and you got two of them. Toy Story, excuse me, which is one of my favourite films and always makes me cry. And also the Rugby World Cup in 2003, the famous Johnny Wilkins smart goal, which is fantastic. I didn't really think you'd get the third one, not because you don't know everything, because it's very, very niche and obscure. So if I can just be self-indulgent just for a minute, I'm going to tell you what it is and then read out a little bit of it. In 1817, my favourite poet, John Keats, wrote a letter to his friend Benjamin Bailey, which in my opinion, and in the opinion of many scholars, is one of the most interesting and thought-provoking letters ever published by a writer in the English language. And it's a long letter, and I'm just going to read a little section from it, just to show you how wonderful it is. And it's some very famous lines in it, some people may have heard of. It goes like this. I am certain of nothing but of the holiness of the heart's affections and the truth of imagination. What the imagination sees as beauty must be truth, whether it existed before or not. For I have the same idea of all our passions as of love. They are all, in their sublime, creative of essential beauty. In a word, you may know my favourite speculation by my first book, and the little song I sent you my last, which is a representation from the fancy of the probable mode of operating in these matters. The imagination may be compared to Adam's dream. He awoke and found it truth. I am more zealous in this affair, because I have never yet been able to perceive how anything can be known for truth by consecutive reasoning, and yet it must be. Can it be that even the greatest philosopher ever arrived at his goal without putting aside numerous objections? However it may be, oh, for a life of sensation rather than of thoughts. Now, I had that letter, or that extract from that letter, excuse my voice today, on my wall at university for 3 years. I looked at it almost every day, and to this day, I think it's absolutely fantastic. So that's what stops you getting an A star, Will.
I'm sorry to have let you down.
It's all right. I'm publicly happy to reveal that I'm going to give you an A, so thank you so much.
That's very kind. Thank you, Simon.
Well done. Right, and now finally to Rachel. Rachel, thanks for being so patient. I hope you're still out there.
No, and I was loving the Keats reading. Absolutely brilliant.
It is a wonderful letter, isn't it? I know you like Keats too. So, at the risk of making you blush, I was thinking of a single word to describe you for the people that don't know you, and I've settled on polymath. Because you do so many things, and there are so many subjects I could talk to you about, and we'll come on to what you might have preferred to talk about later. But today, as I said right at the start, we're going to talk about running and Run Redbourn. So, first of all, Run Redbourn, was it your idea, and how did it all sort of start?
Yeah, sure. So Run Redbourn started in 2016, so it's been going 4 years now. I'd say it was kind of a meeting of minds and a meeting of various parts, really. So I just had my second child on and was on maternity leave, and I'd been doing a lot of work on online communities, how you kind of build and engage people in an online forum when you're not face-to-face. That was kind of my background, and my friend was talking to me, and she just completed a challenge, which was running every day for a month to raise money for a charity very close to her heart. So she had a group of engaged runners, if you like, in Redbourn following this. I'd always been a runner. I was kind of keen to get back into running, and we sort of came together. We had many excited discussions, many coffees in the hub to discuss it. We talked about the possibility of bringing a running club to Redbourn, and I think it's fair to say that although people think it's my idea, I really was talked into it. So she's great at talking people into things, and I was talked into it. So what we did is we ported the people who'd been in her challenge over into a Facebook group, and really these people became the first members of Run Redbourn, and we've kind of expanded really significantly from there.
Okay, and what makes it different, or is it different? Is Run Redbourn different from other running groups?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I guess the first thing is we're a running group rather than a running club, so we're less formal than a club. So with a running club, you tend to have a kind of committee. There tends to be very specific times you run. That's this kind of thing where all running clubs seem to run on a Tuesday and Thursday, and it's just a thing. So I didn't want to be like that. So we've kind of grown a lot more organically. So we've had lots of different people be trained up as run leaders, and then they've offered runs at different times to suit people with different needs. So we've got the before work runs, so the 6 o'clock in the morning runners, which I think a few people think are a little bit mad. Or we've also got runs later in the evening, so 8 o'clock type of running. So if you ever see people with head torches and on the common late at night in the winter, that'll be us. And then we have longer Sunday morning runs, Sunday evening type of runs. So we tend to have more sessions, and fewer people come to the organised sessions. So pre-COVID, I guess we had about 7 or 8 opportunities to run each week. But I guess apart from that, that's kind of organised running. But the main thing where we're different is really we're intended to be a community first and foremost. So it's for anybody in and around Redbourn who likes to run. It's as simple as that, really. We don't expect everyone who's part of Run Redbourn to want to run in a group. Some people love running on their own, and it's their, I guess you call it me time, but they might want to be part of the online community. So they might want to share tips, routes, information, races. There's lots of activity online about running, so there's lots of sharing that goes on, but also just encouraging other people to get up and run, telling their story. Often when you hear people who've come to running, they always have a great story behind them. So that's kind of one of the things we encourage people to share the stories. Also just to say, look, I'm going for a run. Does anyone want to come with me? And there's been numerous sort of friendships and groups sort of developed in that way. So we've actually grown to just over 550 people in our online group, which is quite phenomenal, really.
Yeah,
I guess in quite a small village. I'd say probably about 150 of those who have actually come on an organised run with us, and we probably have about 80 people who I'd say were very regular runners. But as I say, I'm not, sort of setting this up for everyone to come out as a group. It's just a group for if you love running or want to get into running and want to know more, really.
Okay. Now I don't want to. That all sounds well. It is all brilliant and stuff. But the question I have to ask you is, isn't running just a bit boring?
I love this question. Well, I guess it depends, really, doesn't it? I mean, so if you think about me, I probably have two, maybe three, but I'll talk about two different forms when I'm running, and I don't think either of these are boring. My first and best time that I'm running is with other people. I mainly don't even know I'm running because I'm just talking constantly. So lots of people go out social running, so obviously that's never boring. And then my second mode of running would be with headphones, and I either listen to podcasts or music. I personally tend to go for music because as soon as you get near a road, you can't hear what they're saying, and it's incredibly annoying, particularly running down the Redbourn road and someone's trying to say something really interesting and you can't quite get it. So I tend to run to music, but if you're just in the village, a podcast is great. So I think those are the two ways I run, and I obviously don't find either of those boring. I mean, I think the reason it gets this reputation is it can be. If you're just going out, you're doing the same route, you're not varying your pace or your route, and also you don't have a kind of goal or a motivation. Why am I actually going out? I think one of the big developments in running is the quality of running watches. So you can see your progress better, obviously all the Fitbits where you can see goals and set goals and times. That's a lot more motivating. So I personally always say to people to have a goal, and it's your own personal goal. It might just be, I'm going to walk a minute, I'm going to run a minute, and then each time I go out I'm going to do a little bit more, and that stops it from being boring. But also varying the route. I mean, we're so lucky here. We've got the Common, the Nicky Line, there's trails all over the countryside, and varying route, and also thinking about the route. Planning your route can be quite interesting in itself. Which trails have I not done? And thinking about some of the heritage walks and what can I use, and looking that up online. I actually, maybe slightly geeky, I really love planning my routes and where have I not explored and which little paths can I see if I can get down. And then also when I'm running, if I see a path, I'll just take it and just see where I get to. That's one of the really nice things you can do as well.
Lovely. I'm taking that as a no, it isn't boring, I think, in summary. But, very good.
Well, each to his own, I mean,
yeah. I'm sort of convinced, semi-convinced. So on a serious point, Rachel, obviously some people listening may not have tried it before, or may not have done running for a long time, or may feel they're not quick enough, or something like that. What would you recommend for someone who just wants to start running and get going? How can they sort of get going, and how can you help them?
Yeah, absolutely. So my top recommendation, which is absolutely fantastic, there is an NHS program called Couch to 5K. Extremely popular. One of the ways you can get that is downloading an app, and it's a mix of running and walking, and it adds a little bit more each time, and it varies, and I think on the app itself there's goals as well. It's quite motivational. I think there's little trophies that light up when you've hit 1K and then light up when you've hit 2K. So it's really good. So that would be my kind of top tip. And then also just, you don't have to have any apps or any fancy things. We've got the Common, it's more or less round. Walk to a tree, jog to a tree, walk to a tree, and then record your progress. Then next time, try and go a little bit further. It's really as simple as that. I think just don't expect too much. Just be consistent. Try and go out, a couple of times a week to start off with. 2 or 3 times would be brilliant. And just accept, you're not always going to find it easy. No one's going to be kind of Mo Farah straight away, are they? Just keep it realistic, and it shouldn't be difficult. Most of the running, 80% of the running I do in the week, I would call easy running. So if you can talk while you're running, then it's easy. So as soon as you can't, you're into a different kind of breathing zone, that's when is the time to only do a little bit of that running when you're struggling for breath, and stop. So, only 20% of your running in the week should be, significantly difficult to breathe while you're running. So keep it easy and you'll enjoy it a lot more. If you can't run without getting out of breath, walk, and then walk a bit further each time. Just do a few steps of running. Take it slowly. Don't expect too much. The only other thing I would say for complete beginners is to get a good pair of running shoes if you can. For me, what I see is a lot of injuries caused by people wearing the wrong shoes, because the way you run is, if you were in the wrong shoes, but if you're doing it a lot, you can get lots of injuries. So obviously when, this second lockdown is eased, if going to a running shop, they can look at how you run. Lots of people turn their feet in different ways when they run, and it's called pronation. They can get shoes which actually correct that. So it's a decent investment. It's a good thing to ask for Christmas, really.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. By the way, that link that you mentioned, can you just repeat it? Because I think your line went squiffy just at that moment. You talked about something from the NHS?
Yeah, it's called Couch to 5K.
Couch to 5K. Okay, so everybody that didn't hear that first time, Couch to 5K. Okay, Rachel, we're getting towards the end. I want to ask you how the lockdown quickly has affected Run Redbourn and sort of what are you up to at present? Because obviously you're still able to run and stuff, but how are things going in the community, the running community at the moment?
Yeah, so lockdown's been interesting. It's been a case of looking at the different rules and adapting each time. Obviously we had the time when we were running as groups of 6. At the moment we can only run with one other person. So we've sort of cancelled the formal group runs, as it were, and just got people to post on the Facebook page, which is one of the nice things about being a community like this. We can be flexible. But I think the best thing that we've done, which has been fantastic, is we've done various challenges. We've just come off the back of one of the challenges, and anyone who wants to be part of it was put into a team, and they had to do various challenges to earn points. And one of the more mathematically minded run leaders created charts and graphs and winners and all the rest of it. But that was a fun challenge as well. So you got extra points for running wearing silly clothes, or